The reason why I brought up Warhammer 40K because you talked the idea of corrupting, right? A villain who becomes corrupted, and that's the one thing I always really enjoyed about the Warhammer 40K universe is the idea that at any given time you could give in to the whispers of chaos.
Oh,
You could be
sure.
corrupted, and same thing with like Dragon Age, in that game where people
Oh,
can
yeah.
give into blood magic at any time. If you're willing to, if it's like the ends justify the means, you can see that corruption happen. That's always been fascinating to me, seeing that kind of stuff happen.
And that is interesting. I mean, I find it very interesting, the notion of corruption, because that's something that I think thematically games isn't done very well, and it's also not thematically done well in movies, because if you look at why people do things, nobody wakes up one day and goes, "Ah, yes, today I'm going to kill 100 babies, and then I'm going to strangle some puppies, and then I will burn the world." No one does that. No one does that. But what if like a guy was a magic user and his wife got sick and he started using all of his magic to try to save her life and it didn't work? And he kept trying and pushing his knowledge into maybe more sketchier territory. And that started to work. And then he went into the crazier, 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 and then he ends up killing her. But he realizes, no, it's because I didn't know enough, and that drives him to go see the dark arts or something like that. Or you look at
Fuck, I want to
people,
see that movie.
Right?
yeah, yeah,
That-
and
You hooked me in like 30 seconds. Jesus Christ.
but then you look at stuff like power. Power corrupts because if you've ever been powerless, if you've ever been picked on, if you've ever had your ass kicked as a kid, you'll go to the gym, you'll go do karate, you'll go do whatever you have to do to get that kind of presence of mind back. And what if someone was powerless for long enough that they decided that society was evil? And that's what you see with a lot of these people who turn toward, more criminal or violent acts. They feel ostracized by society. That's a believable bad guy. You don't have a terrorist who hates the good guys because they're good. You have a terrorist who hates the good guys' government because they were denied opportunity by that government, because that government's sanctions made his government poor and therefore he couldn't go to school, or he ended up in poverty, or his family farm failed, or he feels trod on by a giant who's uncaring and doesn't see him. And it's these make compelling bad guys. I mean, 40K has some bad guys, but they're hilariously top unintentional self-parody bad guys. Like, I am Doomfuck Soul Shitter, and I ride a bike that runs on cocaine. And they like karate chop babies or whatever. And that's neat because that's like 1980s hair metal band bad guy.
Sure.
But it's hard to take serious. You don't sit back and think about their motivations. You just go, well, he's got a bunch of teeth that are like razor sharp. I'm pretty sure he's evil. A lot of spikes and skulls on that guy. He's probably not in the Boy Scouts. When you're older and more bitter and you look at what's scary in the world, you start being scared of other things. Like, what if a land developer buys the land of the house you live on and you end up, penniless because, eminent domain? Or what if you lose your job because a company kills 80,000 job positions? And it's an uncaring, if not, it maybe not evil. It just may be an uncaring, neutral act. A company goes, nah, we're not as profitable. We're killing these jobs. And you have people who are doing villainous things that are not necessarily villains. But again, you see that stratification of bad guy versus protagonist, where actions are taken unilaterally at a high level of authority that impacts the little guy.
I stand by Magneto also being one of the most compelling villains as well.
I think so.
Where you're like, I don't necessarily agree with what you're doing, but I understand why you're doing it because you've seen the worst of humanity. And
right. And
you're
he's like, nope.
Yeah, I'm not going to fall for that again. So similarly, I'm more powerful than you. So why do I give a shit about you if you don't give a shit about me? Like, there's no reason to hang around here.
Well, last time he played by society's rules, he almost died. So yeah, I can see that abandonment of a social contract. I mean, that makes sense. That is a compelling character. And you won't say he's evil, but you would say certainly he's not society friendly.
Mm-hmm. He's a chaotic guy,
Sure.
Same with, Doug gets this one, Edward Nygma from Batman Forever, right? Like, Guy had his job stripped away from him. He was working on some pretty top level shit, and then all of a sudden, world rug just gets pulled out from under him, and he becomes a very compelling villain. Right, Doug?
Yeah.
Doug?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. I think that was an autobiography for Jim Carrey or something, right? A couple people in the chat said they've got a bad feeling that 2020 is the start of a few villains' backstories.
Well, it's possible, but I mean,
You said it as a matter of fact, like, yeah, I mean, what are you gonna do?
I'm not
Well,
going
we
to say
don't-
it's not going to happen.
I'm a historian by training. I realize that historians can't tell you what's going on. We look at shit a long time ago because that story's written. The story of tomorrow is written today. So, I mean, I just tell people to be kind because, maybe that starving artist on the street corner trying to draw shit might grow up to be a Hitler. But if you give him $5, he might go, hey, it's not a bad day. I can buy a beer. And you might instead keep drawing,
Right. It's not a bad point at all.
if
Yeah.
it's little tiny acts of kindness that can be this wellspring of goodness. And it's like right now, I keep reminding people of something Mr. Rogers said. When you see tragedy and terrible things in the world, look for the helpers. There's always someone out there helping, and go look for the helpers out there. And so, yeah, has 2020 been a shit year? Yes. Oh my God, has it been a burning pile of dog shit? But it's almost over. Think of it as like a really bad level in a video game. You just made it past the 3/4 way checkpoint. You're pulling into the end.
That's
Just
a
take
great
it
way to
easy.
look at it.
In. Right.
Great way to look at it.
It will end. It'll be okay.